Good morning. Today is Thursday, the 13th day of Nisan. Today is the Yortzeit of the Rebbe, the TZITZIT. The TZITZIT was the third Lubavitcher Rebbe, and he passed away in the city, the town of Lubavitch, and that's where his ohel is. And Schusa Yogan Aleinu, and he was one of those of the Rebbes that continued the teachings of the Hasidus to spread. He was the third of the Rabbeim, and in his time there became also the number 3 represents unity. When there is one, then there is two is separation, 3 is unity, and indeed in his time there was big unity between the Hasidim and those who opposed the Hasidus in the beginning. In his days, they came together. And we continue now in chapter 41 in Tanya. And then the Alter Rebbe talks about in this chapter about the fundamental important principle to have he calls it the sheirish, the root and the core of the avodah of the service, the divine service, is to have the yirat Hashem, the fear of Hashem. So he spoke about in general, and then the Alter Rebbe, yesterday's lesson, said that more specifically how we can have also the meditation while we put on the tefillin. We explained that tefillin represents dedicating the intellect, which are divided into 4, as we explained yesterday, to Hashem. But your mind should always be dedicated to things that Hashem wants. And today the Alter Rebbe continues that there is also what we meditate when we put on the talis. The talis represents the encompassing. You surround yourself, you wrap yourself with a talis, and that represents the acceptance of Hashem as king in general. And it's important not only to know that there is Hashem, but to accept Hashem upon you. Som tasim alecha melech. You should accept the king upon you. And the Alter Rebbe also points out that even if you are trying to do this, to take upon Hashem, the king upon you, and yet you don't feel that you don't really feel that it affects you in fear and changes your feeling in your heart, says the Alter Rebbe, don't worry about it. The very fact that you learn about this, you know about this, and you act in that way, you think that way, that little bit of understanding and conviction that this is the right thing, accepting Hashem as a king upon you, even though it doesn't seem to really have an effect in the change of your heart, nevertheless, that is part of serving Hashem truly. Because the essence, the truth is inside. Deep inside, you do feel it. Deep inside, you have it. You have the neshama has that fear of Hashem, that having Hashem as our king. Except that we live in a world that has a lot of distractions. So when you do it on a daily basis, when you put on the talis, you take upon yourself Hashem as king, you wrap yourself and symbolizing the kingdom of Hashem that surrounds everything. That indeed will help that the rest of the day you'll be able to serve Hashem in a proper way. So let's see inside the Alter Rebbe's explanation. So the Alter Rebbe, "Ubeatifas tzitzis yechavein k'meshekasu bezoya lehamshich olav malchuso yisparech." And while putting on tzitzis, one should bear in mind what is written in the Zoya, namely that he should draw upon himself his blessed kingdom. The blessed kingdom of Hashem. You draw it upon yourself. Asher hi malchus kol ha'olamim v'chulu. And when we're talking about the kingdom of Hashem, this is the kingdom over all the worlds. And you would think a kingdom of all the worlds, you can take this great Hashem and make it and connect it as if this is your personal king. It's connected with you personally. Says the Alter Rebbe, yes. Nevertheless, we should intend and endeavor to focus God's kingdom specifically over ourselves through this mitzvah. For the commandment of tzitzis is particularly effective in enhancing one's acceptance of the yoke of heaven. The tzitzis has this power. You take upon yourself the yoke of Hashem. This is similar to the commandment. You shall surely set a king over yourself. And he brings here that the Rebbe notes that the verse implies that before one sets a king over himself, he has no king. And it is he who now sets the king over himself. So accepting the king, this is something that we need to do this. It says, Ein melech b'lo am, there's no king without a people. The people need to make the king. V'azai says that, now says the Alter Rebbe, what happens if you're going to do this? You have this meditation and you're taking upon yourself Hashem as king, and still you don't feel it in your heart. You don't change all of a sudden, start trembling from Hashem, feeling the greatness of God. So what did I do? Did I accomplish anything? Says the Alter Rebbe, don't worry about it. Even if you don't feel it, it does, the truth is there, and only the conviction, knowing that this is the right thing and you think about doing this, it is still considered like you're serving Hashem properly. Says the Alter Rebbe, ve'azai, afim bechol zo isloi sipa il olav eimo v'fachad v'izgalus libay. In such a case, meaning having contemplated this matter, then even though after all this meditation, no dread of fear descends upon him in a manifest manner in his heart, nevertheless, Alter Rebbe mikol makoim me'achar shemekabel olav malchus shamayim. Nevertheless, since he accepts the kingdom of heaven upon himself, umamshich olav yiroso yizborich mizgalus machshavta yirotzoyne shebemoichoi, and it draws upon himself the fear of him in his conscious thought and rational volition. You think about this, that this is the right thing. And the truth, says the Alter Rebbe, when you accept this upon yourself, it is a true acceptance, because deep in the heart, the Jew does not want to be separated, or does not want to rebel against Hashem. Even if you think you do, deep inside, you know it, deep inside you, that you don't want to be separated from Hashem. And this submission to God and his fear of it and the fear of him is beyond doubt a sincere one. Why? For it is the nature of all Jewish souls not to rebel against the blessed Holy King. And therefore, so once you have this contemplation, once you think about this, so this will affect your entire day, the learning Torah that you study, the mitzvahs that you do, that it should be done, whatever you do that day is done in a proper way. Then the Torah that he studies, or the commandments that he performs because of his submission to the heavenly yoke, Hashem's submission to Hashem. When you do this, because the fear that he has drawn into his mind, they are termed complete service. So it's considered a complete service of the kind that can result only from a fear of God. As the Alter Rebbe soon goes on to say, that you're serving Hashem with love alone, it's not a complete service. Only when you have it with fear. You have the awe and fear, deep awe to Hashem. That itself, that only with this you can complete and have a complete serving of Hashem. And this is like all service performed by a servant for his master or king, which is of course prompted by fear and awe. So all this can be accomplished by arousing, even if only in his mind, at least a minimal level of fear, and utilizing it in the study of Torah and the performance of the mitzvahs. So this is what Alter Rebbe explained in today's shir about the meditation when we wear the talis or the tzitzis, which reminds me of a story once. There was an individual, a wealthy person, who became close. He came to visit the Rebbe, and he was not observant at all. And at one time, in one of the visits, the Rebbe asked him for a personal favor he told him, I may have the details wrong, but the gist of the story, he told the Rebbe asked him to start wearing tzitzis. Not, outside like we do with the tzitzis outside, just to wear tzitzis under the shirt. And that person did it. He said yes. And eventually, that person completely changed his life. It had an effect on him. So that tzitzis that you wear, we just explained that this has an effect on the person. What do we wear the tzitzis for? Is to recognize the kingship of Hashem. That's, and as the Alter Rebbe says, that is mamshich with this mitzvah of tzitzis, particularly is effective in accepting the yoke of Hashem, drawing down the yoke of Hashem, and therefore, once you have the tzitzis, he started thinking, wait a second, why am I wearing this thing? What does it do to me? As we say, you see the tzitzis, it reminds you the mitzvahs of Hashem. It awakes your heart. So this is a good mitzvah to do. If you don't wear the tzitzis, let's do it. Of course, there is mitzvahs for the women, mitzvahs for the men, lighting the Shabbos candles, other things. Mitzvahs, the Shabbos candles the men do for the women. The tzitzis, the Shabbos candles the women do for the men. And the tzitzis, the men do for the women as well. So this is the end of today's shir, and Etz Hashem, we will see you tomorrow morning. And don't forget, tonight is Bedikas CHAMETZ. We're going to search for the CHAMETZ. And if you did not sell the CHAMETZ yet, go to Chabad of Sheepshead Bay.com/CHAMETZ. I'm going to put the link in the down by the YouTube video description. So don't forget to sell the chametz, or you should have a kosher Freilich Pesach. But we'll see you, Mitzvah Hashem, tomorrow. Any questions?